Hello everyone. Today we're going to be talking about innate immunity. All right, innate immunity is considered to be our body's first line of defense against infection. So unlike adaptive immunity, which we will talk about as well, innate immunity doesn't have to learn how to fight off those germs. All right, it works immediately. So we're going to be learning about how our body naturally fights off infections. These are our learning objectives for this chapter. Differentiate between the two major categories of immune mechanisms, describe species resistance as it relates to the human species, discuss the mechanical and chemical barriers of defense, explain the inflammatory response, phagocytosis, natural killer cells, and interferon as they relate to immune defense, and discuss the roles of complement and toll-like receptors in the immune system. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about identifying molecules and immune categories. So our immune system is constantly checking our body for what belongs and what doesn't belong. So it does this by recognizing special molecules called antigens. And these antigens, you can think of them as ID cards for cells. All right, our body identifies molecules as self molecules or non-self molecules. Self molecules are considered to be normal molecules. They belong to you or belong to us. All right, so think of a self molecule as your school ID. All right, every student that has an ANU school ID belongs to ANU. Now think of non-self molecules as foreign things like bacteria, viruses, things that the immune system will need to fight off. All right, so non-self molecules, think of them as um, people that enter our ANU campus that are visitors. They have a visitor's badge. They stand out as foreign and they could be dangerous. All right, so self-tolerance is another thing that we need to talk about. Self-tolerance means that our immune system knows the difference between its own cells and foreign cells. So if this system fails, it can lead to things such as autoimmune disease, where the body mistakenly attacks itself. There are two main types of immunity. All right, we have innate immunity, which is the one that we're talking about, non-specific, and this is considered to be the fast but general immune response that reacts to anything foreign. And we also have adaptive immunity. All right, adaptive immunity is also known as specific immunity. And this is a slower but more targeted immune response that once the invaders come in and we fought at one time, it kind of remembers them for the future. So if they were to enter in the future, our body can easily respond. All right, so now we're moving on to immunity itself. So this image basically compares innate immunity and adaptive immunity and how they respond to an infection over time. So the left side represents innate immunity. So we're talking about that non-specific defense, which is going to respond to any invaders immediately. All right, so what you can see here, we have microbes. So we're talking about things like bacteria, or viruses that enter the body. So they try to enter the body. The first thing they are going to encounter are our epithelial barriers. So we're talking about our skin, also our mucous membrane. So they're going to act as the first line of defense. If the microbes happen to get past those barriers, then we have phagocytes like neutrophils and macrophages. They are going to engulf or surround these invaders and eventually destroy them. All right. Natural killer cells, they destroy the infected cells or cancerous cells. And then we also have complement proteins. They help out by marking those invaders for the destruction. All right, on the right side, that represents the adaptive immunity. So we call that the specific defense. All right, and it basically takes a few days for this to develop. It doesn't kick in right away like innate immunity. So what you can see is we have the B lymphocytes, also known as our B cells. They recognize what is foreign, so the invaders of the body, and they start producing antibodies, which are going to help neutralize the threat. We also have T lymphocytes, which are T cells. And T cells are activated as well, and some are going to turn into what we call effector T cells that kill the infected cell as well. So this process again creates what we call immunological memory. So that means that the body is going to respond faster if we're exposed to that same invader in the future. So some of the key takeaways from this are that innate immunity acts fast, but it's general. It fights off anything. It doesn't care what it is. It's going to fight everything in the same way. Adaptive immunity takes time, but it is highly specific. It creates memory of what invaded it the last time, each time, so that the body can easily fight it off the next time, or fight better the next time. So again, this process is going to ensure that we have long-term protection, which is why vaccines help train in terms of adaptive immunity. All right, now we're going to move on to the primary cells of innate and adaptive immunity. So our immune system is made up of different types of cells. Each cell is going to have a specific job to protect us from infection. So these cells will all work together to stop germs from getting in, and they're also going to destroy them if they do happen to enter. So different cells play a different role in terms of immunity. So epithelial cells, which we talked about on the last slide, they are our first line of defense. They make up your skin, also the mucous membranes as well, and their job is to keep the germs out. All right, next we have phagocytic-like cells, like neutrophils and macrophages. You can think of them like Pac-Man cells. Their job is basically to kill off anything that invades our body. All right, they're going to eat the harmful invaders. Natural killer cells attack infected cells. So cytokines help those immune cells kind of communicate. All right, B cells and T cells, they belong to our adaptive immunity. So just looking at this particular slide, the first bullet point, epithelial barrier cells, that's our first line of defense. Phagocytic cells, that's again the Pac-Man cells. They're going to eat off the danger. All right, natural killer cells are going to attack anything it considers to be suspicious. So this is part of that innate immunity. It's going to attack everything. Cytokines, think of them like text messages between immune cells. They're basically going to trigger and regulate the immune response, telling everybody what to do. All right, last but not least, we have the adaptive immunity used by B cells and T cells. So B cells, their job is to make antibodies, and T cells basically attack infected cells. So directly, and they also are gonna tell immune cells what to do. All right, that's what the B cells and T cells do. So they basically are gonna send signals, and those signals are gonna activate or regulate whatever that immune response is gonna be. All right, next we have species resistance and types of barriers. So some species are naturally resistant to certain diseases. Let's think about humans. Humans have mechanical barriers. Those are like our skin and also the mucous membranes. They act as a shield. So they're barriers that don't let things come in. All right, these barriers also are going to produce chemicals to help kill some of the germs before they enter the body as well. So our body basically has built-in defenses that help protect us from getting sick. And these defenses include species resistance as well as physical barriers like skin and our mucous membranes. All right, in terms of species resistance, that basically means that some diseases only affect certain species, and that's because of our genetic differences. So, an example of this would be dogs can get canine distemper, but humans can't because our bodies don't allow that virus to infect us. So, the natural resistance helps protect us from different types of species and certain illnesses as well. All right, next we have those mechanical and chemical barriers. Again, that's our first line of defense. And our skin is one of the strong physical barriers that we have. It keeps harmful bacteria and also viruses out. Mucous membranes are in place as well, like in our nose and also in our throat. Their job is to trap things such as dirt, dust, germs, etc., before they can enter deeper into our body. Our tears, our saliva, and also our stomach acids, they contain chemicals that kill germs before they can make us sick. So again, in terms of internal protection with the skin and also the mucous membranes, your skin covers and protects your organs from outside invaders, and the mucous membranes in our mouth, nose, and digestive tract are basically going to catch and remove harmful particles before they can reach our important body systems and make us sick. Additional immune mechanisms that we have is in the event that germs do get past the skin and the mucous membranes, the body has other defenses like immune cells that are going to help destroy those invaders. So the key points here are basically our first line of defense is always going to be working, and our bodies are designed to basically help stop infections before they start. So the combination of species resistance, skin, and also mucous membranes helps protect us from all of those outside threats. All right, now we are moving on to the lines of defense. So again, our immune system is working 24/7 if it's not compromised, even when we don't notice. Every time we get a cut or breathe in germs or even eat something bad, our body's going to respond automatically. So this is why it's important for us to stay healthy as much as possible. That's by practicing good hygiene, eating well, and also staying current on our vaccines. So the body has basically three lines of defense against infections. The first line of defense, which you see here in this particular slide, is the defense, the skin and the mucous membranes, and also secretions as well. All right, the second line of defense includes things like inflammation, fever, and immune cells like phagocytes. And then the third line of defense, which belongs to the adaptive immunity, involves the B and T cells. So again, when we're going back to the three levels, the first line of defense, this is our body's natural barrier, like walls. If you live in a castle, those walls that protect the castle are the natural barrier for people that want to get in. They have to get past the castle walls first. All right, so the skin is our first and strongest defense. It acts like a shield to keep harmful things out. And we have also those mucous membranes that are going to trap germs before they can get inside. In addition to that, we have those chemical barriers that we talked about, like sweat, stomach acid, and also our saliva, and that's going to kill those germs before they can harm us. Now, the second line of defense, if the germs get past that first barrier of our body, the second line is going to kick in. All right, so it's we're talking more so about the inflammation response. So if you've ever had a cut or maybe even a scrape and it became red, swollen, or even warm, that is your body fighting off that infection. So basically, the white blood cells called phagocytes are going to act like little Pac-Men, eating and destroying anything harmful that has invaded our body, anything that has gotten past that first line of defense. Last but not least, our third line of defense, this is our specific immune response. So it's like a backup system when all other methods fails. The body basically is going to create antibodies that recognize and attack those specific germs. So our T cells and our natural killer cells, NK cells, they basically work, I'll say, like security guards. They're going to be looking for, hunting down, and eliminating any threat that has entered. So once our body fights off that threat or fights off that germ, it's going to remember it for the next time, making us more immune to certain infections. So if you've ever had chicken pox, after you've had it, pretty much you can't get it again because your body is going to work against it. All right, now we are moving on to the inflammatory response. All right, so in terms of inflammatory response, inflammation basically happens when we get injured. So it's your body's way of responding to damage. Some of the key signs of inflammation are going to include redness, heat, swelling, also pain. All right, fever, that's our body's way of fighting infections by making the conditions inside harder for bacteria to survive. So when a person has a fever, even though we give them medication to bring it down, that is your body trying to fight off what has invaded it. All right, it is trying to get rid of and protect us for what has come in. So when your body gets injured or faces some type of infection, it triggers a response, and that response is called the inflammation response. All right, it's a natural and a necessary process. The response is going to help the body not only heal but also fight off what has invaded it, those harmful invaders. So when tissues are damaged, so let's say we have a cut or a burn or some sort of infection, the body sends signals to start the healing process. So basically our blood vessels are going to expand, allowing for more immune cells to reach that infected area or affected area. The body is going to release what we call inflammation mediators, and these are chemical signals that attract white blood cells to that injury site. So this process is basically called chemotaxis. It's like sending an SOS message to your immune cells to tell them to come and help in the fight. Again, some of the signs and symptoms of inflammation, there's 4 main signs that tell us that inflammation is actually happening. One of them is heat. All right, so basically we have more blood flow to that area and it makes it feel warm. Another one is redness. So we have increased blood flow and that causes the redness. Next is pain. So some of our nerves may get irritated from the swelling that produces pain. And the last one is swelling. All right, in swelling, in that instance, we have extra fluid and immune cells moving in to fight those germs, and as a result, it is going to initiate that swelling or cause swelling. Last but not least, fever, that's the body's wide system response. So it's responding to the entire body, and sometimes inflammation also is going to spread throughout the body, and that's going to lead to fever as well. So fever happens when chemicals called pyrogens, which is the last bullet point down here, those pyrogens tell the brain to raise the body temperature. All right, and this helps slowly decrease that bacteria or kill that bacteria or that virus and make it easier, or I won't say slowly, but slow down the bacteria or virus to make it easier for our immune cells to fight them off if we can make them slower. All right, now this is a microscopic image of what we call a mast cell. And in the mast cell is showing you the dark granules inside as well. So these are basically special immune cells that play a role in allergic reactions and also inflammation. So it's a special type of white blood cell typically found in tissue, especially in our skin, our lungs, and also our digestive tract. All right, they store what we call histamines and other chemicals that help the immune system respond to the injuries that we have or the invaders. So basically, when the body detects something harmful like pollen or dust, they release these histamines, and this causes symptoms like runny nose, sneezing. It's also why, in the event that, let's say, we're having an allergic reaction, we always go and get something called an antihistamine. And an antihistamine basically helps reduce that allergic response or that allergy like symptom. So, um, that is pretty much it. These mast cells, they basically are going to help with things such as wound healing and also fighting off bacteria and viruses. All right, even though they sometimes cause us to have allergies or an allergic response, mast cells are something that we need to help defend against infection. So without these mast cells, our bodies wouldn't be able to react as quickly to what has invaded. So bottom line, mast cells are like an alarm system for our immune system. They alert the body when something's wrong. So while they do help protect us, they can also overreact, and that would lead to things that we have like allergies, and it also leads to conditions like asthma as well. All right, now we're moving on to inflammation mediators. So in this slide, we're looking basically at different chemicals or mediators that help control inflammation. All right, in terms of helping with inflammation, these are like signals that tell the body how to respond to whatever injury we have or whatever infection we have. So it's like our first line of defense. So first we have the initiating response, or we have to initiate the response. So when the body basically detects an injury or an invader like a virus or a bacteria, it releases chemicals to start the inflammation process. And the chemicals that are listed in the first circle, histamine is one of them. We talked about histamine in the previous slide. All right, these chemicals, they are responsible for increasing the blood flow to whatever area needs that attention. If that blood flow is increased, it does cause redness. It also tends to cause warmth as well. And they also assist with making our blood vessels leaky, allowing more immune cells to basically reach the site of infection or injury that we need it to reach. All right, now we're moving on to the second line. All right, the second phase is recruiting more cells. So once inflammation begins, the body does send out signals for reinforcements, calling for more immune cells to come help with the fight or whatever the problem is. So the second circle lists and identifies the agents that are going to assist in sending out those distress signals. So they basically tell the white blood cells, specifically neutrophils and macrophages, to move toward the injured area or the area that needs help. All right, the third phase is removing the debris. All right, so after the battle is over, after the fight is over, the body is going to need to clean up what we consider the mess or the aftermath. So the third circle basically lists agents like interferons and chemotoxins that are going to help activate immune cells to come and destroy bacteria and also damage cells, as well as clean up the waste to prevent those infections from spreading. In the last phase, which is repair and regeneration, so we basically need to repair and regenerate tissue. So once the area is clean, the body is then going to start the healing process. So the last circle basically lists the agents that are going to help with those repairs, such as stimulating new tissue growth by forming scar tissue, and also repairing damaged skin, and also repairing damaged organs. So inflammation is like a fire alarm. All right, it's basically alerting the body to a danger, and it's calling for help. If it stays on for too long, though, what we call chronic inflammation, it can cause problems like damaging healthy cells and also tissues. But in any case, inflammation is controlled by these mediators. Again, these are signals that tell our immune system to respond. Some mediators attract white blood cells to destroy harmful invaders, and some help with the aftermath and cleaning up and repair and regeneration of things that need repairing after the battle is over, after the fight is over, after the danger is gone. All right, now we're going to look at phagocytosis and also phagocytes. So mostly definitions here. The term phagocytosis comes from the Greek words phagen, which is to eat, and also kytos, which is cell, meaning cell eating. All right, so certain immune cells are going to engulf or surround and destroy invaders, and these cells are called phagocytes. They surround bacteria and they also digest them. All right, neutrophils are the most abundant type of white blood cell. So they basically jump into action as part of our immune response. All right, now we're going to take a look at kind of what that immune response is on this next slide. All right, so here we're talking about phagocytosis of bacteria. So you can see that there's numbers here. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and this is a cycle. All right, so stages 1 and 2 are basically recognition and attachment. So the macrophage is going to detect a foreign bacteria in our area or in the surroundings inside of our body, in this case, and that bacteria is going to attach to the macrophage, all right, through what we call non-specific receptors. All right, so the macrophage basically is going to extend what we call pseudopods, all right, towards the bacteria to prepare to surround it. We call that engulfment. All right, step 3 is basically now we've done that engulfment piece. That macrophage encloses around the bacteria within what we call a vesicle called a phagosome through a process called endocytosis. All right, and that phagosome it basically serves as a containment unit or a containment area for that bacteria. It's going to keep it from escaping into our cytoplasm, keeps it from getting away. All right, step 4, all right, we have lysosomes inside of these macrophages, and they're going to release digestive enzymes. So basically they're going to, we need to eat this harmful substance. So it's going to release digestive enzymes into the phagosome, forming a digestive vesicle. These enzymes are going to break down that bacteria, rendering it now harmless. And then in step 5, this is what we call exocytosis, sorry, and that's basically where the waste removal happens. So that macrophage is going to release that degraded bacteria or the remnants of it as what we call end products through a process called exocytosis. So basically the waste is expelled from the cell, and this process is going to repeat itself. All right, so as you can see, initially in step 1, there were 5 little bacteria. Now, when we get to step 5, there's only 4. So the process is going to repeat until all the threats have been neutralized. All right, now we're going to go into types of phagocytes. All right, so our immune system has specialized phagocytic cells, and their job again is to engulf or surround and destroy pathogens. So two key types of phagocytes are macrophages and also dendritic cells. All right, macrophages, they grow larger, and this is after they leave our bloodstream. They grow larger, and they patrol the body. Once they encounter a danger, they engulf it, meaning they surround it and they digest that pathogen. Dendritic cells are cells that are found in our tissues, and they basically help sound the alarm system or alert or activate our immune response. And these are cells like our T cells. All right, here we're looking at a microscopic view of a dendritic cell. Again, its job is to detect the pathogen. It will basically capture and process that foreign substance, whether it's a bacteria, a virus, or a toxin. So many vaccines that we take, they work by targeting like dendritic cells. They basically present antigens, and they also stimulate that immune response. So again, dendritic cells are antigen presenting cells that help activate those T cells. They also bridge that gap between your innate immunity, which is that fast, rapid response, and also the adaptive immunity, which takes a little bit longer to kick in. All right, now we're moving on to natural killer cells. So our natural killer cells, that's a type of immune cell that kills infected cells as well as cancerous cells. So they don't need to learn a virus like the B and T cells. They attack immediately, like that's the first line of defense. That NK cells just jump into action. They use 2 receptors to decide whether to kill a cell or to let it live. All right, so they have 2 primary killing mechanisms. All right, so a killer activating receptor, and they also have a killer inhibiting receptor. All right, the killer activating receptor basically prompts the NK cell to attack, and the killer inhibiting receptor basically tells the cell to, it basically prevents the cell from attacking what we would consider a normal healthy cell. So in terms of the killing methods, we have trigger apoptosis. In that instance, it releases these proteins that cause the target cell to self-destruct. And then we also have direct contact. All right, so with direct contact, they basically bind directly to the infected cell and they destroy it. All right, so those are the 2 methods that the natural killer cells possess. All right, now we're just going to take a look at the NK cells functions. All right, so they basically are going to determine which cells to attack and which cells to leave unharmed, is what we discussed on the previous side. So normal cells, and we're looking at on the left side of this slide, the normal cells display what we call an MHC class 1 molecule on their surface. So the killer inhibiting receptor on that NK cell basically detects that MHC class 1, and it prevents an attack. So the cell is spared, it's left alone. All right, now on the right side, when we have an abnormal infected cell, they don't have that MHC class 1 um, receptor, or they have some type of altered surface marker. All right, and that allows the NK cell to detect the absence of that MHC class 1, and it triggers an attack. All right, so they basically release what we call perforin and also granzymes, and that leads to that apoptosis. So perforin is, it basically, when it attacks, it creates pores or holes in the target membrane. And then the granzymes, they basically enter those cells and they initiate that apoptosis. All right, so again, the NK cells, they use apoptosis, which means they force those infected cells to self-destruct. So again, this keeps infections from spreading. All right, now we're moving on to interferons. All right, these are proteins that warn nearby cells about viruses that have entered. So they basically prepare us, or prepare the body for action. All right, the complement system helps our immune cells kill bacteria by basically punching holes in them. So again, the immune system has specialized proteins that help protect our body from infections, and they're interferons, so they're antiviral signaling proteins. The complement system basically has a cascade of proteins that help eliminate pathogens. All right, and they can activate in two ways. So the classic way and also the lectin pathway. All right, the classic way is basically triggered when antibodies bind to pathogens, and the lectin pathway is activated by sugar molecules on the surfaces of microbes. All right, so the interferon is like our protective alarm system, and the complement cascade is basically going to help the immune cells kill the bacteria that enter. All right, the last thing that we're going to talk about are the toll-like receptors. So toll-like receptors, or TLRs, are basically sensors on our cells, and their job is to detect invaders. So they basically recognize specific germs. They identify patterns that are found on that bacteria, and when they're activated, they basically trigger the immune response in that way. So they more so are looking for patterns on these invaders so that they can jump into action. And this concludes our lecture on innate immunity.